Going downtown, going downtown, going downtown, get down. Tonight I'm going downtown, going downtown, going downtown, get down, yeah. Tonight I'm going downtown, going downtown, I'm going downtown, get down.
Inselmilkom il-lejli tajb nilqakom għal edizzjoni oħra tal-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Il-ħajja ta' Yasser Arafat kienet ħajja kontroversjali, però Yasser Arafat ma kienx kontroversjali biss matul ħajtu, però wkoll baqa' kontroversjali wkoll wara mewtu. Riċentament studji xjentifiċi li ħarġu anke minn laboratorju ġewwa l-Iżvizzera jindikaw li kien hemm probabilità li mhijiex żgħira illi Yasser Arafat miet avvelenat. Persuna li la sostni ħafna li Yasser Arafat ma mietx mewta naturali ma ġie assassinat hija l-armla tiegħu Suħa Arafat. Illum għandi l-pjaċir ngħid li qiegħda magħna waqt il-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Għal-finijiet ta' dar-programm, matul dar-programm jiena se nkun qiegħed nintervista lil Suħa Arafat bl-Ingliż. Mrs. Arafat, thank you very much for being here on Iswed fuq l-Abjad. You were a Christian. You converted to Islam for your new husband, Yasser Arafat. You were a convent-educated girl. You married Mr. Arafat when you were in your late 20s. Mr. Arafat was then already in his 60s. A person with a background like yours makes a very unlikely person to marry a Palestinian leader. How come? How did you meet Mr. Arafat? And did your parents approve of this marriage?
You know, I consider that it's all destiny. You know, when you are born, destiny is already, drawn for each one of us. You know, I don't know. It happened to be me. You know, I am a very natural, normal person with an extraordinary life. It was not easy. He loved me from the first sight. You know, he saw me. I was 25 years, and he decided to get married. And I could not refuse the symbol of the Palestinian people. For me, Arafat is like was for everybody like Mandela. Now we are commemorating, his death, of Mandela's death. He was like Mandela. So can you imagine that the symbol of the Palestinian people, he gets, in love with me, and I would say no. It was so difficult to say no. I loved him afterwards, but he was taking as a young, a young girl of 25 years. He was so much interested in me, and it was my ego, that this great man is so much, and he never got married, and he asked me to get married. So I could not say no. It was so hard, all the differences. I was Christian, he is Muslim, all the cultural, differences between us as a my family lived in Palestine. My father was so much afraid that I could, have all these difficulties. You've
had a lot of difficulties, as we'll be seeing during this interview.
Yes, 20 years of character assassination, of danger of life, and my parents would not want this marriage. They said, no way you will get married. So we get married secretly, and it was very difficult.
What did your mother do when she got to know that her daughter had married secretly
she was crying, and my father he said, listen, I dreamt a dream like you were like Jesus Christ put on the cross and being crucified. He had this dream. And he died, my father, when my daughter was born. And now I remember his dream when he said, I dreamt this dream and I was being crucified every day in all kind of rumors, in all kind of character assassination, in all kind of accusation, which comes afterwards to be false. And people that judge you. They judge you in just appearance. They don't know what is inside of you. They see you on television, on media. They see maybe beautiful or young woman, and they have to criticize her. And especially we are very weak circle. A wife. always. Wife of prime ministers, wife of presidents.
Yes, but you had a very different circumstance from that of the wives of other leaders, or the husbands of other leaders, because you were married to such a high-profile person. Describe to us, how was it like to be married to such a high-profile person? How did it affect your identity, the way you lived, even the way you lived inside your own house? I imagine that you couldn't make normal telephone calls with the fear that your phone might have been tracked, for example.
Yes. But I had to go through my way. It was all to be, oppressed with the entourage, with all the surrounding of him, or to have my own personality. So I decided to have my own personality. I have decided to do humanitarian work. I decided to interfere in some laws protecting women in Palestine. For example, women could not get married after 18. We did special tests. I did so much for women, and I was also doing it in some low profile. It did not please a lot of people, but in spite of him changing me, I changed him. I changed him life to tell him that you are, very high profile, but you are not God. We are normal people.
You were probably the only person close to Mr. Arafat who used to speak to him in this manner, because Mr. Arafat was held in high esteem with the people who were very close to him.
Yes, because of this, I was not loved around, because I would tell him the truth that other people that don't want to hear him. Everybody came to me. It was the house was open, wide open to everybody. I would receive every single person who has problems. I would have a file full of requests for him to sign at night. It still has file, So he would sign it every day. All the people who wants money, who wants to be educated, he used to treat all the people from very dangerous, all over the world. He would send people to America to be treated when they have health problem. So he had all his money for the Palestinian people. So I had to go into my own way, and I had to fight for it. Sometimes I would cry so much, and I would tell him I can't take it anymore, because I would say I can't.
In fact, I was going to ask you, was there ever a moment when you regretted marrying such a high-profile person?
Yes, of course. I said this in an interview, because sometimes I would tell him I can't take the stress anymore. I can't take these injustices. And I can't take what all this media are writing about me as if they are talking about somebody else who is not me. I would read something, I would laugh about things, stories and
what
stories.
What was his reaction? Because he was used to being criticized.
Yes, he said you have to be, he said you have to be like a crocodile. Always, he would tell me. And he said, you would see, the newspaper. What do you do with the newspaper? You stand on the newspapers, and you'll get hires. You put all the newspapers that speaks against you, and you will be a higher person, always. And when he sees, I would have an article about me, I'm so much upset, he comes and he puts it in the shredder. And he said, it's finished now, change the subject. He had no time for my complaint, because he said, okay, now don't complain. I've been through, they said that my mother was Jewish, a lot of things, unfair. They said that I was homosexual, a lot of things, you can't imagine. They said that he died from AIDS, We
shall see that as well. There were various theories about it.
So poor man, he had to face, like Mandela faced all his life, 27 years of prison. Yasser was in contact with Mandela during all this time when Mandela was in prison. This is the nice relationship with Mandela and Yasser Arafat.
You must have met very well-known world leaders when you were married to Mr. Arafat. Can you tell us some experiences of encounters you had with high-profile leaders?
The most important thing for me are people who are humanitarian. I don't care about politicians. I would tell you, Mother Teresa. We went to see her in Calcutta, in India, and we were staying one day with my husband there. I prefer Mother Teresa to the most important politician in the world, the Pope, Jean Paul II. These persons, attracted me more than political leaders. Spiritual people always attracts me. People who help Desmond Tutu, people who help who help their people. Mother Teresa was a great woman. I used to meet, these people and be more proud.
What was their relationship with Mr. Arafat?
Very good. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Arafat was, he would not like me to say this, but he was taking care of the convent and giving donation to Calcutta to Mother Teresa. So much, when he...
A Catholic foundation led by Mother Teresa being supported financially by Mr. Arafat, who wasn't Catholic himself.
Mother Teresa Foundation used to take a donation from all over the world, even from Muslim country. And when Yasser went there, I remember he gave a donation, very important donation to the Mother Teresa. Don't forget that Yasser Arafat is the president of Palestinians, Christians and Muslims, and Jews as well, if there exist some of them in Palestine. And he is, the conservator of Saint Sepulchre, and as a president of Palestine, and the Nativity in Bethlehem. And when you used to have the 25th of Christmas, everybody would come, to us all over. President DeMarco, I remember, came in 2000 with his wife Violet. We received them very nicely in the Nativity. So everybody used to come, and he considered, he would say, you can't be a good Muslim if you are not a good Christian and if you're not a good Jew. So he was surrounded by Christians as well as Muslims, and would never, in Palestine, there was never differences between Christian and Muslims. We were all, even the Jewish religion, we are against Zionism, against occupation, we are not against Jews.
Everywhere Mr. Arafat went, he was heavily guarded by people, because there was always that continuous threat to his life. Did you ever feel afraid when you were with Mr. Arafat, both at home and when you were visiting in the Palestinian territories, but also in foreign countries?
Never. I don't know. I felt next to him as if I was always protected. This is very strange. I never had this fear, because we used to say if something would happen from the Quran, even if you are hiding in the castles, destiny is destiny. So I used to feel security around him. This man gives you, even looking at you, security. As if he was, between brackets, eternal. You felt it. You felt it. He was giving hope to everybody. He was a pioneer. When I saw Mandela's funeral and I saw Yasser's, it is very, very similar. Yasser had 3 funerals in France and in Egypt, and all over the world, all the heads of state were coming. And I thought, my goodness, now we don't have any more leaders like this.
How was he like at home? We were used to see Mr. Arafat as this strong leader, the person who used to give very passionate speeches, surrounded by security men. But a strong man, we used to see him in the media. But at home, what was he like?
No, he was very nice. He was taking care of Zahwa, actually. And when she comes, actually he could, he had to wake her up when he comes home at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, because he could not, see her in the morning. He would go and he used to play with her a little bit. He was very nice. And don't forget, we had the love story between each other. It was not, a normal marriage. And sometimes people would tell me, you did not see Yasser Arafat a lot. I would say always it's quality of time, not the quantity. Quality
Zahwa,
of time.
you gave birth to Zahwa, your daughter, who is now 18 years.
Who's with us today.
Yeah, and she's with us, yes, as well, here today. In Paris, not in the Palestinian territories. Why in Paris and not in your at home? In your hometown?
Why? Because my father was dying in the same time that Zahwa was born, and this is everybody was accused. This is the character assassination. They were accusing me. She gave birth to my mother, and my father were living in Paris, and my father was so much sick, and he was all in the coma, and I had to go and see him, and it was in the same time. The birth, Zahwa I had to give 2 weeks after, and he died. And 2 weeks after I gave birth to Zahwa, he could not see her. So the doctor said, "You will not leave. You will not leave." I was in a very terrible situation, and I did. I gave birth in our tradition, next to my mother, you know. So everybody was saying that she did not give birth, and she was snobbing the Palestinians. My mother gave birth to us in Jerusalem, you know. I mean, we are used to be there, but these injustices, you know, made me, it was so sad, you know, to have a birth and a funeral 10 days between each of them. And my father is buried in Montparnasse in Paris, you know, his tomb is in Paris. So when you see this injustices, and she's snobbing us, she's from a rich family, she's snobbing the poor people, and she has to go and get, a birth in the refugee camps. You know, I don't pretend. I came from a very prominent family. I help my people. It doesn't mean that you have to be not from a prominent people not to help your people. You see, this is
Zahwa, your daughter must have heard a lot about her father Yasser, and also about the injustices that you refer to. She is 18 years old now. Is she interested in politics?
Yes.
Is she interested in continuing in her father's footsteps?
I don't know, but she is interested in politics. She knows a lot. She speaks about her father so much. I tell her a lot about her father. I tell her a lot what's happening, what happened, and she keeps asking me about all the rumors that were about her father, and I would explain to her. She's studying in Malta here.
At the university?
At the university,
what is she studying?
International Relations.
Okay.
She's in her first year, so I hope that she will continue. We love Malta. We love this country.
In fact, I was going to ask you, what brings you to Malta, Mrs. Arafat?
First of all, what brought me to Malta is because, you know, what happened in Tunisia. Another injustices, had problems with the wife of the president. This is an old story. And I was going to go to Paris, and I said, no, my brother, the ambassador of Palestine, and his wife Dina, lives here in Malta with their children. So I said I would come and visit them. And then Zahwa said, Mommy, I don't want to go to Paris. I want to stay in Malta. And I mean, we were so much...
And now you've been living in Malta for...
Yes.
And we were, since when have you been living in Malta?
6 years. And we were so much received by the Maltese government, this government, and the both governments, Labour and Conservative and Nationalists. We are, you know, we have friends from all
You've
sides.
had a very good relationship. Your husband had a very good relationship, as you said, with the late Guido De Marco, as well as with,
and with Mintoff.
And with Mintoff.
And with Mintoff.
You know,
I like in Malta the political life. Political life is, all Maltese are politicians. It reminds me about Palestine. You know, there's a movement in politics. And in this regard, I would like to thank the Prime Minister here for something very important Joseph Muscat did for the Palestinians. You remember the refugees when they came from with a boat, and most of them, half of them died and half of them survived. And the Maltese government, you can't imagine how did they do. They did not put them in a custody. They took care of them. They brought help, psychological help. They took care of the funerals. And the Prime Minister did an appeal that this Mediterranean will be a cemetery for all. It was great to see that the Maltese people, the Maltese government, the Maltese heart would receive refugees from wars, from Syria. It's not their fault. They were fleeing wars, but they were so much taken care of from the Prime Minister and the Maltese government. I'm so proud, and I want to thank him personally.
Should you have the opportunity to become a Maltese citizen, you might soon have the opportunity to buy the citizenship. Do you consider that?
I would be so much proud, but I'm a French citizen as well. So I am European. You know, I'm European. Malta is Europe. I am a part of Europe.
You come from a well-established, wealthy family. Mr. Arafat, your husband, died. You were still young. You must have had many suitors. How come you never got married again?
You must ask my daughter. No, boy. No, you know, when you have such a great man like him in your life, you can't be fond of anybody else. You compare, you know. And some people say, no, Soha, you must not compare. You must see, you know, Arafat was unique. But for the moment, I don't think to re-get married again. I think to be, you know, to stay taking care of my daughter, taking care of her, of my grandchildren. I want to keep his legacy. And, you know, I'm not, no, I would not do this. I don't think so.
In 2004, Mr. Arafat died, and immediately you said that Mr. Arafat was assassinated. Very recently, there were results also from a laboratory in Switzerland which said that polonium, which is a form of poison, we will not go into the details because it is very scientific, and which very few countries possess this type of substance. It was found, according to the Swiss laboratory, this substance was found on parts of his on cloth items of Mr. Arafat. It is not 100% sure, but there is a high probability
83%.
that it was 83%. The French continue to deny that, but you continue to insist that Mr. Arafat was assassinated. How come you said that you were convinced that Mr. Arafat was assassinated right from the beginning, even before it seems that tests were conducted?
Because I was 15 days with him in the hospital, and we had 50 doctors from all over France were coming just to make a consultation. And they said, he did not die from anything. He was like a baby. Nothing. You know, if you can do all the exams from all over the world, even the rare illnesses in Africa, you know, the rare microbes that never exist any place. And they did the poisons, but not the radioactive poison, because it was not created. It does not exist. Nobody could poison this. They only poisoned Litvinenko 2 years after the Russian spy in a restaurant in London, if you recall the story. So, and the doctor said, there's no reason that he died. So at the end, they put conclusion, Arafat died from no reason. We don't know. If you see the report, there's no reason for, can you imagine somebody dies without any reason? He had the blood cells that were going down, and without no reason, he died. So I had to go further and further. So Al Jazeera journalist did this investigation, and he asked me if I have any belongings. Can you imagine at the last days of hospital, when he died, they gave me his bag. So I kept it in a safe place. And when the Al Jazeera asked me if he has any belongings, I said yes, but I was laughing. Why they want the belongings? So they went with these belongings, his hat from the hospital, if you remember, and his underwear, his jogging. And they asked me if I have them. I had them. And then they made special, 3 months after, they discovered that he had polonium on his blood stains, and on the urine, and on his shapka, you know, that he puts on his hair. So they said, okay, if you want to be sure, you have to exhume the body. And I insisted, and with a lot of problems, we speak, you know, take time to speak about all the difficulties and obstacles, but we arrived to this conclusion. Now the Swiss said he has 83% in his body when they exhumed the body polonium. And don't forget that he's been dead for 9 years. And each, 15 days, the polonium goes half. It disappears. Half of the quantity. So
9 years later, it's still 83%.
Yes, can you imagine? So David Berkeley, if you Google him, he's a very forensic expert in Scotland Yard. And he was with us an expert. And he said that they put him the same quantity as Litvinenko.
However, Mrs. Arafat, for Mr. Arafat to have been poisoned, there must have been somebody from the inside, people close to him, collaborators, in order to poison him. It could have been even a Palestinian person who did that, because he was surrounded by people who were close to him.
This is the problem. It must be something from his entourage, because it's a small, you don't see what it is. It's like sugar. It's like salt. It's that small, like this. So it must be somebody that was waiting for an orders to poison him.
Do you have your suspicions?
I'm afraid to have suspicions. You know, I'm afraid to. I can't doubt in all religions. You can't doubt. Everybody is innocent until you prove the contrary.
However, there remains the question: why wasn't an autopsy carried out at the time of Mr. Arafat's death, which the autopsy could have concluded immediately whether Mr. Arafat was poisoned or not?
You know, in the Muslim traditions, immediately they bury the body, you know. And he was not with me anymore. The Palestinian Authority took the body to Ramallah. It was not in my, you know, authority to do anything. I stayed in Egypt. There was already some problems with the leadership, if you remember, you know. And I did not want to add most on the problem. So I said, I'm sure that they're going to do their job and to make an autopsy, but they did not, nobody did the autopsy. But even if they have done one, the problem is that polonium was not discovered as a poison in this, in that regard. You know, radioactive poison was not discovered.
Recount to us. You have recounted this already in interviews you have given, if I'm not mistaken, to Al Jazeera. You went to visit Mr. Arafat on his deathbed a few days before he actually died, and he couldn't speak, he couldn't communicate. However, he pressed your hands and he communicated with his eyes. You said he wanted to tell you.
Yes, he commented he was crying and he was looking in his eyes and crying, as if he would want to tell me that he was betrayal, stamped in the back. He felt it. It was a very moving moment. And I would put him the Holy Quran all over the hospital, the reanimation, that he would, you know, wake up, but he would do small, you know, it was only neurological signs. We could not arrive to a conclusion. It was so hard. And, you know, everybody said, after Arafat dies, peace will flourish. I'm seeing peace flourishing all over. You can't imagine how peace is flourishing.
They used to say, his critics used to say that Mr. Arafat was, he himself was an obstacle to the peace process.
Of course. And what, region. You know, they made elections and Hamas won. Bush used to say, Mr. Arafat is an obstacle for peace. We need young generation, free election. They did free election, they had the extremists. So, you know, history talks. You can tell anything you want in life, but after 9 years, where are we now? History gives answers.
How do you view the situation, the current situation in the Middle East right now?
I don't have any hope. I don't have any hope about anything in the Middle East. Neither Palestinians and Israelis, it will not, you know, it would not lead to any solution. We are very, very far from a solution. The revolutions in the Arab world are becoming very extremist revolutions. Some countries, it's so difficult. It's very, very, it's boiling. It's boiling. It's going to boil again. It's very, very boiling.
What is your opinion of the Israelis?
You know, the Israelis have just to leave us in peace. The Israelis has just, we want to get rid of occupation. Yasser Arafat recognized Israel. He said two-state solution. Israel, he is the only Arab leader to be courageous to recognize the state of Israel. And he was granted the Nobel Peace Prize. They have to leave us live peacefully in our 67 borders. They are our place, 60. We have already did concessions. He has already did concessions when he was threatened by other Arab countries to be killed because he did concessions, because they wanted all Israel, all Palestine. They were saying, we want all Palestine from the river till the sea. Yes, Arafat made concessions. He said, okay, you have your state. I will not come to your state. And the state of Palestine of 67 borders. With Jerusalem will be capital, the Israeli capital and Palestinian capital. And now the most important obstacle is the settlements that they are putting. Israel has to stop making settlements. All the European Union, everybody is criticizing, even the Americans are criticizing settlements because they come and settle. And geographically, you can't make a Palestinian state if you have settlements all over. So I think that Israel has to be more mature to let us have our own state for the even Obama, even Bush, even Clinton for the Palestinian state.
You yourself have been in the center of controversy, media reports which said, for example, that millions of dollars went through your secret bank accounts. There were also rumors in the media that the apartment that you live in here in Malta was bought to you by, or donated to you by Gaddafi.
You know what is the Maltese?
You
know what is the Maltese honor? You know, because I rent in Slima an apartment. So when the Maltese owner heard this news, he said, "Mrs. Arafat, please, this is my apartment. It's not Gaddafi's apartment." You know, it's injustice. You know, I could bear these rumors when my husband was alive, because he was here to back me, to say, "Suha, don't worry." But when I am a widow alone with a daughter, and comes all these rumors because people who hate you, people who hate him, people who hate his legacy, to say things that every Maltese citizen can know where I live. And they said I had Libyan bodyguards, and Saif Gaddafi came to, you know, and all these rumors that even every single Maltese person who is in the street know that it's not true. And with the millions coming, with all these rumors that has no, everybody, when sometimes in France or in other countries, when media reports comes, justice comes and inquire, and the justice find nothing. So you have to say all the time to justify yourself for nothing that never happened. But now I became like a crocodile. I will tell you, there's God who is judging me only.
Describe to me a day in the life of Mrs. Suha Arafat now, because you shall always, of course, remain the wife of the late Yasser Arafat. Everywhere you go, even if you go abroad, governments will probably know that you are that you are there. You cannot lead a very normal life.
No, it's very difficult. But I love Malta because I'm very safe, Touchwood, and calm in Malta. Maltese people are very nice and are very discreet. You know, sometimes they see you in the street and they just smile. You know. In other countries, it's more difficult. I love your country. You have to appreciate your country. That when you go all over and you see how peaceful is your country, this is a great privilege from God. I'm taking care mostly of my daughter's studies all the time, behind her back to study and to take care. I read a lot. I'm reading books. I'm reading the book of Cecilia Sarkozy now for the moment about her life. And she said in her book a very important phrase that I am an ordinary woman who found herself in an extraordinary life, and she had to leave what she was facing, It's a very. I read also biographies to understand what was going on with me. I go, I walk on the seashore. I visit my brother, the ambassador, and his wife and the children. In Malta, I'm very, like a housewife. I love Malta, relaxing. I sleep. I come sometimes just to relax and sleep in Malta because all over it's so much hectic. It's all security. It's all, But I really love this country, love its people, love everybody, every politician, from right and left. They are all my friends. I love this country.
You have gone through a lot in life. You have a lot of experience to recount. Would you consider writing your life story?
Yes, I'm thinking about it. But sometimes you have to be very frank with yourself and frank with others. There's a lot of things, a lot of secrets that has to be, I don't know if it's time to be revealed. There are a lot of names. I lived with Yasser, the Oslo Agreement, the secret talks, all these things. I don't know if it's the right time.
You must be in the possession of knowledge, which has so far...
Yes, knowledge. I have actually his memoirs, actually. He left me his memoirs. I don't know when the right time will come to me, even publish his memoirs.
You are in possession of his memoirs?
Yes. So I don't know when the right time will come to. It's the first time I say it on a Maltese on a TV, actually. And I don't know when time will come to write his memoirs, I don't know. I don't know. It's so difficult to think. It's difficult maybe to put people in danger, to put countries.
You would probably open a can of worms once you publish
Another war.
Mr. Arafat's
Yes. Yes. So I have to be protective of what he, he said. He always tells me, "You are after my death. You're going to publish them always, And but I don't know. It's so difficult. I have to protect my daughter, to protect myself. Already, what we are doing to discover reality is not easy. But I'm doing this for him and for his legacy.
Are you still in contact with politicians or leaders of movements within the Palestinian Authority?
Yes. No. President Mahmoud Abbas is very nice. Everybody is in contact with me. Everybody, of course. They know that I'm stubborn. They know that I have my own ideas. They know that they can't influence me. They know that I can make a lot of opposition, in my ways. So I am like this. I can't change, because I still consider that my leader is Yasser Arafat. I still consider that my president is in heaven. And this way that I want to make it my own way,
How would you like people to remember Mr. Arafat?
They are already remembering him. You can't imagine. Palestinians come to his tomb, to his mausoleum, and they cry. Because he was not saying no to any person. The Palestinian person who is in Chile, in Norway, would write a letter to him to ask for help, and it was a way of his life. The post office was of the Palestinian people, the address was Yasser Arafat. He would help every single person in the Palestinian people. People miss him so much, because you could arrive to Yasser Arafat. Now President Mahmoud Abbas is very good, but he's a real president. Yasser Arafat was the father. You said the father. Some countries like Ben Gurion was the father for the Israelis. They consider him the papa, like Guido Nomarco, they consider him in Iraq, and Mintoff, they consider him the father. Some of the people, they need reference. Arafat was the reference of the Palestinian people. So people remember him every single day. I've never seen a leader 9 years after, we're still remembering him, and it comes breaking news all over the world. I never see.
It still makes the news today.
I don't know if you've seen another.
After his death.
Mandela now will die. Okay, well, they will speak about. But Yasser Arafat, in spite that Mandela was the great friend of Yasser Arafat, but Yasser Arafat's legacy is still living each moment. He makes breaking news every day. Any news about him makes breaking news not only in our local media, but in the international media. I'm proud, and I tell my daughter to be always proud of her father, despite of all the difficulties.
However, notwithstanding the fact that you are close to Mr. Arafat, of course, during his life, and you visited various countries with him, and foreign leaders, and you were a point of reference to many people who felt more comfortable speaking to you than to Mr. Arafat, because they thought that through you they could get to Mr. Arafat. You still insist on keeping at a distance from politics.
Now, yes. When the vagues will say are very high, you have to kneel your head, You have to be low profile, because sometimes lights might burn. To fire, it might burn. So now I'm in the media only because there's a very important, not because I want to be in the media. I have the opportunity to be every day in the media. But I keep a low profile because it's not the time when all the refugees are being. Now, before I came, I was seeing a reportage about refugees, Syrian and Palestinian, dying from cold, from the snow, because they don't have any place. Why all this revolution? Why?
One last question from my end, Mrs. Arafat. You continue to insist now even more so with the reports that you have in hand from the Swiss laboratory that Mr. Arafat was assassinated. However, as we said, the French authorities continue to deny that Mr. Arafat was assassinated. if I'm not mistaken, they say that he died because of a stroke.
Can you imagine?
What are you going to do about this? Are you going to insist? Are you going to try? How are you going to carry on with your case now? What will happen?
I'm contesting these results first. Secondly, we brought the Swiss lab, came to Paris to have all meetings, and the problem with the French experts that did not have a radioactive experts with them. They had legal doctors, can you imagine? And they did not have all these materials who are top that the Swiss had, even to examine the radon in the grave. What is the difference? The French said that the polonium was in the air and it contaminated the body. The Swiss said it was in the body and it contaminated the air. This is both of them find polonium, but the French wanted to be. I'm contesting the result. I'm changing the lawyers. The first time I will tell you, I'm putting a new lawyer. He's a Jew.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. A Jewish French lawyer that is going to take over the case. So nobody will be embarrassed, He's very, very, very famous in France. So this lawyer is contesting the results, not of the justice, because it's scientists. Justice is still doing its work. They're still, hearing testimonies, but they are doing a lot of work. I'm contesting the results because the Swiss explained for me why we have to contest the result. And the Swiss, can you imagine now there's a war, hidden war, between scientists and scientists. I know, and this is the University of Lausanne, of Radioactive and Nuclear University of Lausanne. So you can imagine the two mentalities now. Now it's not the war between me and anybody. It's war between two laboratories, a war between experts.
Are you confident of a positive outcome, that it will eventually be established that Mr. Arafat was assassinated?
Yes, I'm convinced fully, because, Swiss are neutral. You can't find people who are not neutral more than the Swiss. And when a Swiss gives you 83% results, it means he worked for 1 year every single spot of this. The French did not work all the work. He worked every single thing. So we're waiting. I'm sure you will do another interview.
It would be my pleasure.
And I will remind you that my doubts were true.
One last question. We are a few days before the festive season, before Christmas and the New Year. How will you celebrate your...
Don't remind me. I celebrated it in crying because I was celebrating it with my husband in Bethlehem. We were, hosting all the heads of states all over the world. And, we would, in Bethlehem, we had Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, Anglican, Armenians, everybody. And me and him would share the Mass. I go to the Armenians, he goes to the Protestant. But sure, the main midnight Mass in the Nativity would be both of us. And I would receive all singers from all, Bocelli, everything, every singer from all over the world in the place of Nativity would do festive. And each time I have I remember now it has no more the same taste. It's
a sad period for you because it reminds you of the time of your husband.
Yes. We stayed actually 10 years going, and we would prepare all the nice festivities. And this Muslim leader, and in the Holy Land, who is celebrating the venue of coming of Christ, and singing Hallelujah in Bethlehem. It's so much touching. I would tell you, we celebrated calmly in the house. After he died, I can't celebrate it.
Things changed and your life changed drastically since Mr. Arafat's death. Mrs. Arafat, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you on Iswed fuq l-Abjad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. U bekk ġejna fit-tmiem tal-ewwel parti tal-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Meta niġu lura nibdlu s-soġġett kompletament, niddiskutu flimkien ma' kandidat tal-Partit Nazzjonalista tal-elezzjoni tal-Parlament Ewropew Stefano Mallija il-kandidatura tiegħu u issues ta' kontroversja politika lokali li qed jiġu diskussi bħalissa f'pajjiżna. Niltaqgħu dalgħod.
Going downtown, I'm going downtown, I'm going down to downtown, get down. Downtown, I'm going downtown, I'm going down to downtown, get down.
Nilqakom għat-tieni parti tal-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Miegħi fl-istudio issa Stefano Malija, kandidat tal-Partit Nazzjonalista l-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew, li miegħu naturalment se nkunu qegħdin nitkellmu dwar il-kandidatura tiegħu għall-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew f'Mejju li ġej, kif ukoll issues ta' natura politika li intkom tkunu qegħdin tiddiskutu u li jkunu qed jiġu diskussi wkoll fil-medja. Stefano, grazzi ħafna li qajt l-istedina ta' Iswed fuq l-Abjad.
Grazzi lilek Frank tal-li oġbok tistedinni.
Inti ġej mill-qasam tal-soċjetà ċivili, persuna involuta ħafna fil-qasam tax-xogħol, fil-qasam ekonomiku, konsulent, sissa dejjem rajnik lilek. Mhux attiv fil-politika kirid wieħed isejħilek partiġjani kemm iddeqni ftit dik il-kelma.
Jew mhux involut direttament.
Għaliex iddeċidejt li tagħmel dan il-pass li issa tidħol fl-arena politika?
Jien statħal direttament, naħseb dik hija l-kelma fl-arena politika kif poġġejt inti, fl-isfond li ġejjin l-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew. Jiena kif taf inti Frank kien li involut ħafna fuq il-qasam tal-Unjoni Ewropea, ili mill-1999, involut direttament u b'mod professjonali bħala xogħol tiegħi fuq l-affarijiet tal-Unjoni Ewropea, u għalhekk kif mhux isni qomt il-bieraħ rajt l-elezzjoni ġejja u bdejt nieħu interess fl-affarijiet tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Allura għalija dan huwa pass illi isni kelli nikkonsidraha huwa xi ħaġa li nagħmel ta' kuljum. Jiena meta kien inbidel il-Gvern ta' Alfred Sant, jiena bdejt ix-xogħol tiegħi fil-konsulenza tal-Unjoni Ewropea, jiena studjajt għamilt master's degree fuq l-affarijiet tal-Unjoni Ewropea, fuq l-istudji tal-Unjoni Ewropea, u mbagħad minn dak iż-żmien law b'mod professjonali dejjem ħdimt fl-isfera tal-Unjoni Ewropea, għamilt kont ġaġejt nkun involut mill-Gvern ta' dak iż-żmien biex nagħmlu studji biex nibdew nifhmu l-impatt ta' sħubija tal-Unjoni Ewropea fuq l-ekonomija, jiena dejjem fuq l-isfond tal-ekonomija. U mbagħad ukoll meta kienet jersaq żmien tar-referendum, kien kellimni Simon Busuttil u kont dħalt propju miegħu fil-Moviment Ewropew u hemmhekk kont kampanjajt mod attiv favur l-Unjoni Ewropea. Minn hemmhekk imbagħad wara li r-riżultat ġie kif ġie, kien ovvjament riżultat pożittiv ħafna għal pajjiżna, jien imbagħad ix-xogħol tiegħi baqa' għaddej fuq ix-xogħol tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Kont ukoll għamilt l-ewwel sentej minn ta' sħubija, kont attwalment immexxi l-uffiċċju ta' Simon Busuttil bħala membru tal-Parlament Ewropew. U mbagħad jiena wkoll ix-xogħol tiegħi dejjem kien fuq fondi tal-Unjoni Ewropea, fuq proġetti tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Kont ukoll involut fi żmien ftit qabel ma tħanna anke b'mod tista' tgħid dirett u indirett fuq in-negozjati wkoll fejn kontent ukoll il-Gvern jipprepara ċertu pożizzjonijiet ta' negozjati għal sħubija fuq l-Unjoni Ewropea. U mbagħad tista' tgħid bajt dejjem involut. Ġifieri anke kif taf ukoll jiena kont involut ħafna fil-Kamra tal-Kummerċ. Minn hemmhekk ukoll kont ġejt propost u kont ġejt votat biex inkun fuq dak li jgħidulu il-Kamra tal-Kummerċ tal-Ewropa, kont fuq il-Board of Directors tal-Kamra tal-Kummerċ tal-Ewropa. U wkoll sentej u nofsilu kont ġejt propost mill-imsieħba soċjali biex inkun fuq dak li jgħidulu l-Kumitat Ekonomiku Soċjali Ewropew li qisu l-MCSD imma fuq livell Ewropew. Allura jiena kif tista' tifhem ħajti dejjem kienet.
Infatti jiena lilek dejjem istek bħala meta rajtek dejjem assoċjajtek mal-Unjoni Ewropea, però issa qed tikkandidatura ruħek, tikkandida ruħek f'isem il-Partit Nazzjonalista u naturalment jekk tiġi elett se tkun qed tirrappreżenta lil pajjiżna fih dan il-Parlament Ewropew. Stefano Malija, x'differenza l-aħjar jista' jġib għal pajjiżna primarjament għax inti tkun qiegħed hemmhekk f'isem il-Partit Nazzjonalista imma l-pajjiżna għal Malta kollha u x'differenza l-aħjar tista' jġib inti fil-Parlament Ewropew b'mod tanġibli?
Le, b'mod tanġibli. Li rrid ngħid qabel forsi qabel ma illi ovvjament jiena meta ġiet il-mument li kien nieħu deċiżjoni biex nidħol għal din il-biċċa xogħol biex nagħti biex impoġġi ismi quddiem il-Partit Nazzjonalista. Li nkun mal-Partit Nazzjonalista kienet ovvjament xi ħaġa naturali għalija. Huwa l-partit li dejjem kien favur l-Unjoni Ewropea u għandu l-prinċipji li huma l-prinċipji tiegħi wkoll. Dik għalija kienet naturali. Però ovvjament qabel ma ddeċidejt li attwalment nieħu dak il-pass jiena ovvjament ist ħafna affarijiet, tkellimt ħafna ovvjament mal-familja tiegħi u tkellimt ukoll ma' nies li kienu u huma għadhom ukoll involuti mal-partit biex nieħu l-feedback tagħhom. U l-feedback prinċipalment kien wieħed pożittiv. U għalhekk jiena wkoll der li dan huwa żmien partikolari fejn il-partit naħseb irid jerġa' jagħmel pass biex jerġa' jieħu dik is-saħħa biex jerġa' jqum bħala partit fuq ix-xena politika. U ħassejt li forsi kien wasal iż-żmien tiegħi li nieħu dak il-passin ukoll għax jiena dejjem segwejt tal-politika biex inkunu fair. U jiena mmarkat xi ftit jew wisq ukoll mill-fatt li missieri kien prominenti tista' tgħid fil-ġdida tal-iskejjel privati, tal-iskejjel tal-Knisja, meta l-Gvern Laburista rid jalaqhom. U dak iż-żmien missieri wkoll kien arrestat u kien l-pulizija jiġu qalbulna d-dar.
Il-politika dejjem kienet
parti markat biha dik. U naħseb issa kien fl-aħħar ħassejt li issa u nasal għall-mistoqsija tiegħek ħassejt li issa kien il-mument illi jiena nidħol u nagħmel dan il-pass għalfejn. To be fair, kont diġà konsidrajta 5 snin ilu biex inkun għax kienu kelmuni wkoll xi nies mill-partit, però ħassejt li ma kienx iż-żmien propizju għalfejn għax jien illum naħseb illi għandi l-esperjenza ġusta tajba biex nagħmel biċċa xogħol tajba għalfejn. Jiena llum għandi 42 sena, ili naħdem kif qedlek diversi snin fuq qasam tal-Unjoni Ewropea, però ili naħdem fuq il-qasam tal-ekonomija Maltija. U minħabba t-tip u natura ta' xogħol tiegħi li huwa fondi tal-Unjoni Ewropea, proġetti tal-Unjoni Ewropea, jien nisma' faxex differenti kemm tas-soċjetà kif ukoll tal-ekonomija. Jiġifieri ħdimt minħabba wkoll l-involviment tiegħi fil-Kamra tal-Kummerċ, ħdimt ħafna mal-Prim Ministru Lawrence Gonzi, ħdimt ħafna mal-Ministri li kienu dak iż-żmien, ħdimt ħafna mal-bdiewa, ħdimt ħafna mas-sajjieda. U għalhekk inħossni llum għandi esperjenza wiesa u jiena nemmen li persuna ikun min ikun illi tiġi eletta biex tkun tirrappreżenta lil Malta fil-Parlament Ewropew, irid ikollha dik l-esperjenza wiesa għalfejn għax inti jaslu momenti fejn tittieħu deċiżjonijiet. U tittieħu deċiżjonijiet ibbażati fuq in-knowledge tiegħek. Jien dejjem ngħid illi kieku jien nifhem fil-karozzi biss, fuq il-karozzi nista' kieku nagħti l-aħjar opinjoni, ma jkun mbagħad jekk jisaqsuk fuq l-ambjent u jekk jisaqsuk fuq l-agrikoltura, inti ma tkunx taf tirrispondi. U għalhekk nemmen illi persuna li tkun hemm trid ikollha esperjenza wiesa biex tista' tieħu deċiżjonijiet tajbin l-aħjar ġid ta' pajjiżna.
Se nagħmlu waqfa qasira ħafna mal-aħbarijiet tad-9:30, imbagħad meta niġi lura nixtieq inkun naf jiena il-Partit Nazzjonalista llum għandu 2 siġijiet fil-Parlament Ewropew, il-Partit Laburista għandu 4 siġijiet fil-Parlament Ewropew. Il-Partit Nazzjonalista għadu kif tilef elezzjoni ġenerali fejn il-Labor rebaħ b'maġġoranza enormi, x'se jkun qed jagħmel il-Partit Nazzjonalista biex jirnexxielu jġib tal-inqas it-tielet siġġu fil-Parlament Ewropew. U kemm huwa kruċjali dan it-tielet siġġu għall-Partit Nazzjonalista. U x'jiġri jekk il-Partit Nazzjonalista ma jirnexxilux jġib dan it-tielet siġġu. Imma dan nitkellmuh wara l-waqfa qasira l-aħbarijiet.
Downtown, I'm going downtown, I'm going down, downtown, get down. I'm going downtown, I'm going downtown, get down.
Nilqakom għal-tini parti tal-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Kif tafu għandi miegħi fl-istudio lil Stefano Mallia li huwa kandidat tal-Partit Nazzjonalista tal-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew. Stefano, qabel ma morna l-aħbarijiet, konti għad nintroduċi din il-parti li fiha fl-ewwel parti tagħha xtaqt titkellem kemm hija importanti din l-elezzjoni għall-Partit Nazzjonalista. Kif kon qed ngħidu l-Partit Nazzjonali biż-żewġ siġġijiet għandu fil-Parlament Ewropew u kruċjali li jtella t-tielet siġġu minn tal-inqas fl-elezzjonijiet ta' Mejju. Però kemm se jkun faċli jew diffiċli dan għaliex il-Partit Nazzjonalista għadu kemm ħareġ minn telfa kbira fl-elezzjonijiet ġenerali u tisma' lilek u lill-kandidati l-oħrajn jitkellmu anke l-kap tal-Partit Nazzjonalista Simon Buzotti donkom hemm ċerta konfidenza li l-poplu Malti ser jkun qed jagħti l-appoġġ tiegħu lill-Partit Nazzjonalista f'dawn l-elezzjonijiet. Il-mistoqsija hija x'se jiġri jekk dan l-appoġġ ma jiġix, se jkunu reperkussjonijiet politiċi għall-Partit Nazzjonalista. Kif tanalizza s-sitwazzjoni?
Jiena naħseb illi l-ewwel ħaġa illi kemm huwa importanti li ntellaw tliet siġġu wkoll mill-fatt illi tara il-performance tal-Parlament tal-membri tagħna tal-Parlament Ewropew meta ngħid tagħna tal-Partit Nazzjonalista meta tara dak vis-à-vis dak tal-Partit Laburista. Naħseb ma qed ngħid xejn ġdid jekk ngħid li l-MEPs tal-Partit Nazzjonalista konsistentament dejjem ħadmu ħafna aħjar, dejjem ġabu riżultati ħafna iktar minn li ġabu il-Partit Laburista għalja volja għandu id-doppju tas-siġġijiet li għandna aħna bħalissa. Fi dik l-ewwel ħaġa. It-tieni ħaġa jien nemmen illi sfortunatament il-Gvern Laburista qed jagħti ħafna sinjali koroħ, illi jew li mhuwiex konvint mill-post Malta fl-Unjoni Ewropea, jew illi ħajatiha ħafna inqas importanza milli jixirqilha. U għalhekk nemmen li huwa importanti ħafna illi ikonna almenu 3 siġġijiet. U qed ngħid hekk għalfejn għax jien nemmen illi bit-tim li għandna diġà tal-kandidati llum għandna ħafna nies validi. U jitla min jitla mill-kandidati li hemm illum ħajamel jew ħatamel biċċa xogħol tajba. U għalhekk ninkwieta meta nara x'qed jagħmel il-Partit Laburista, ninkwieta s-sinjali, x'sinjali tgħid. Ma nibda bis-sinjal l ħaġa illi mill-Prim Ministru stress. Mela l-Prim Ministru jitkellem fuq l-Unjoni Ewropea b'mod kważi dispreġġattiv għalfejn qed ngħidha. Qed ngħidha pereżempju meta qalilna intom kien moħħkom intom il-Nazzjoni moħħkom Brussels stila Brussels nieżel. Jew nkella imur barra minn pajjiżna u jgħid isma' Europe lacks leadership. Ifida il-Prim Ministru ta' Malta li jrid imur jinnegozja mal-Prim Ministru l-oħra tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Li qed jgħidilhom intomx leaders, intomx qal Europe lacks leadership. Ma dan qed jgħidilhom li m'għandux rispett lihom.
Però jista' jkun ikollok faxxa tal-elettorati li qed taqbel miegħu meta tgħid Europe lacks leadership, pereżempju Europe lack leadership fil-kwistjoni tal-kriżi finanzjarja internazzjonali. Ma jkollux raġun Joseph Muscat rigward jgħid.
Jien naħseb irridu noqogħdu attenti li ma tistax tgħid li m'hemmx leaders fl-Unjoni Ewropea, hemm żgur li hemm leaders fl-Unjoni Ewropea. U dawk il-leaders illum qed jieħdu ċertu deċiżjonijiet. Tista' ma taqbilx magħhom fejn jiena pereżempju il-passi li ħadet l-Unjoni Ewropea li baqgħet tafas forsi wisq fuq l-austerità milli fuq it-tkabbir ekonomiku, għalja volja issa dan ġib bilanċjat, naħseb forsi ma kienx l-aħjar pass. U ma jfissirx leaders ma jagħmlu żball, imma jiena il-punt tiegħi huwa dan, jekk inti Prim Ministru ta' pajjiż tal-Unjoni Ewropea, ma tistax tmur tgħid fl-Unjoni Ewropea li m'hemmx leaders, għax imbagħad dawn l-istess nies tinnegozja magħhom. U però naħseb l-ikbar sinjal qed jagħti l-Partit Laburista li kemm mhuwiex konvint minn postu fl-Ewropa huwa li l-istar candidate tagħhom li huwa llum Alfred Sant u l-iktar bniedem li huwa kontra l-Unjoni Ewropea.
Kif tħossok ħadd tkun qed tiddibatti ma' Alfred Sant f'opportunitajiet li jiena nittama li jkollna anke jekk dejjem jiġu min-naħa tal-Labour Party, kandidati tal-Labour Party f'dan il-programm ħadd tkun qiegħed bil-qiegħda ma' Alfred Sant tiddibatti. Kif ħadd tħossok tkun qed tiddibatti ma' persuna li għamel kruċjata kontra s-Sovjet ta' Malta fl-Unjoni Ewropea, però bla dubju ta' xejn huwa fost il-kandidati li hemm ċans kbir li għamluha f'dan il-lista tal-Labour Party.
Jiena propju braħ filgħodu kellna dibattitu diġà organizzat mill-Kunsill Nazzjonali taż-Żgħażagħ li propju wkoll ħdejja bil-qiegħda kien hemm Dr. Alfred Sant. Jiena Dr. Alfred Sant bħala bniedem għandi kull rispett leħi dak m'hemmx ebda dubju, però jiena nittrattah bħalma nitratta l-kandidati kollha l-oħra. Jiġifieri jiena naf li huwa għandu ċertu ħsibijiet li jiena ma qabilx magħhom, jiena ħappoġġi ħsibijiet tiegħi bil-prinċipji tiegħi on the table meta jkun diskussjonijiet u ħajkollu l-idejat tiegħu jiġifieri ġa anke mill-bieraħ filgħodu kien ġa qed jgħid affarijiet li jiena ma qabilx magħhom u ma qabilx miegħi, però jien naħseb għandu jkun hemm dibattitu ċivilizzat bħalma ħajkun hemm dibattitu ċivilizzat mal-qbija tal-kandidati l-oħra. Jiena żgur mhux qed ngħid illi Dr. Alfred Sant m'għandux ikun hemm, però jiena nħoss illi s-sinjali ġejjin mill-gvern, għax dawn għall-Partit Laburista llum huwa fil-gvern m'għadux fl-oppożizzjoni, li m'għadux komdu fl-oppożizzjoni jikkritika u jagħmel li jogħġbu, illum qiegħed fil-gvern u s-sinjali li jagħti gvern huma sinjali importanti. U naħseb dawn wieħed mis-sinjali li qed jagħti.
Suġġett li qajjem ħafna kontroversja kull darba nitkellmu dwar l-Unjoni Ewropea huwa suġġett tal-immigrazzjoni irregolari. Issa jiena personalment nemmen li tista' tkun opportunità l-immigrazzjoni li nistgħu mhux biss l-immigrant imma anke l-komplement tagħna tal-poplu jgawdilna. Però naf illi fuq din il-kwistjoni x'aktar xi qed f'minoranza għax il-maġġoranza tan-nies iħarsu lejn l-immigrazzjoni bħala sfida serja ħafna, mhux biss sfida serja kważi anzi rid ngħid bħala teddida. Issa, minnaħa anke tal-Labour Party hemm dak l-element li jgħid li l-Unjoni Ewropea mhux qed tagħmel biżżejjed biex tgħin il-pajjiżna u hemm bżonn jekk hemm bżonn ninsabtu saqajn, jekk hemm bżonn nużaw il-vito biex il-mexxija tal-Unjoni Ewropea jieħdu kondizzjoni ta' dak li qed jiġri f'pajjiżna u jgħinu lil pajjiżna. Imma ma taħsibx li meta jkunu qegħdin jitkellmu hekk kif jgħidu bl-Ingliż it strikes a chord ma' l-elettorat Malti, għax l-elettorat ukoll ħoss li l-Unjoni Ewropea fuq din il-kwestjoni abbandonatna lil pajjiżna, ħallitna weħedna ftit li xejn qiegħda tajna, għalqas dik hija l-opinjoni ta' diversi nies hemm barra.
Mela jiena fuq di l-biċċa xogħol tal-immigrazzjoni l nies jien għamilt ċertu ammont ta' xogħol fuq din l-erja. Fis-sens ta' jiena kif qedlek fil-bidu jiena membru tal-Kumitat Ekonomiku u Soċjali Ewropew u jiena kont rapporter fi kont responsabbli biex nikteb l-opinjoni ta' dal-Kumitat fuq l-immigrazzjoni irregolari fil-Mediterran. U biex nagħmel dan ma xtaqx inpoġġi wara desk kif qiegħed illum u nikteb rapport u nitkellem ma' erba' min-nies. Però li għamilna jiena u membru Grieg ukoll li kien co-rapporter miegħi, ridna nagħmlu esperjenza ħajja. Għamilna esperjenza ħajja billi pereżempju morna u għamilna missjoni fi ħriġna fuq il-baħar mal-Frontex u għamilna 8 sigħat fuq il-baħar mal-Frontex biex nagħmlu patrols tal-baħar. U għamil dan biex jiena nifhem first hand minn xi xaddu mhux biss l-immigranti imma wkoll min qed jagħmel dak tip ta' xogħol. U mhuwiex faċli li tagħmel pereżempju 8 sigħat fuq il-baħar fid-dlam ċappa kull ma tara l-iskrin quddiemek u għaddej inti 8 sigħat fuq il-baħar hekk. U tibda tifhem daqsxejn diffikultajiet.
Issa inti kont fuq patrol boat taħseb wara huma li jkunu fuq dajsa li
Però wkoll biex tibda tifhem ukoll l-nies din hija issue komplessa ħafna. U jiena l-moment li nkun qed nisma' dibattitu jew nipparteċipa f'dibattitu jiġi xi ħadd jgħidli is-soluzzjoni hi kif nisma' dik il-frażi jien nitfi għalfejn. Is-soluzzjoni tanti komplessa illi m'hemmx sentenza waħda jew ħaġa waħda li ħassolvi din problema. Din hija problema jew issue li ilha ġejja minn ħafna snin u ħatkun ħatibqa' magħna għal ħafna snin oħra. Issa, pereżempju waħda mill-affarijiet li qalli kaptan tal-petrol boat li konna fuqha qalli da konna l-Greċja u taħriġna l-incidentally. Qedlu inti x'taħseb li ħadkun is-sitwazzjoni llejla? Qalli ma ħajġri xejn, qedlu ġiġifieri. Qalli issa kif nitilqu minn mal-art da ħajċempel xi ħadd min-naħa tagħna, jiċempel Turkija fejn jiġu l-immigranti għal ġol Greċja u jgħidulhom isma' ħirġa petrol boat f'dik id-direzzjoni tibatux dajjes. Għalli aħna
kriminalità organizzata sew.
Eżatt, imma infatti jiena waħda mill-punti li għamilt f'dan ir-rapport kienet illi l-Unjoni Ewropea mhux qed tiddedika biżżejjed riżorsi biex taqbad il-min qed jorganizza dat tip ta' affarijiet. Jiena l-argument tiegħi kien li meta jekk persuna tmur fuq bass f'kwalinkwa pajjiż fl-Unjoni Ewropea tpoġġi bomba toqsol għal ħarsqat in-nies, dak huwa terrorist. U l-pajjiż involut jagħmel minn kollox biex jaqbad dak it-terrorist. Mela persuna li qed tibgħat mijiet tan-nies fil-baħar imutu. Mhux m'għandniex inqisu l-istess mod.
Però mill-banda l-oħra Stefano, il-fenomenu tan-nies jiċċaqlqu minn pajjiżhom biex ifittxu futur aħjar f'pajjiżi oħra kien minn dejjem għal sekli sħaħ il-bniedem kien jiċċaqlaq minn fejn qiegħed jekk qiegħed iħossu mhux qiegħed tajjeb biex imur jgħix f'pajjiż li jħossu qiegħed jew art li fejn jħossu li qiegħed aħjar.
Allura hemm raġuni u raġuni Frank għalfejn dik tiċċaqlaq, jekk inti qed tiċċaqlaq sempliċement biex issib ħajja biex tkollok għejxin aħjar mod, hemmhekk inti qed titlaq minn pajjiżek għax qed titlaq minħabba persekuzzjoni għax ħajqtluk hija mod ieħor. Jiena meta nara dak in-nies jagħmlu dak is-tip ta' sogru joħorġu fuq il-baħar. Ħafna minnu ħafna drabi qas ikunu jafu jowmu. Jew nisa bitrabi, ovvjament daw qed jitilqu minn
għalhekk qed insaqsik allura ma jkunx aħjar li l-enerġija tagħna niffokawha iktar issa. Dan huwa fenomenu se jibqa' magħna għal dejjem. Kif issa se nkunu qegħdin nindirizzawh? Kif se nkunu qegħdin jekk hemm bżonn anke naraw li tkun opportunità anke għall persuni stess li qegħdin jaqsmu. Għax issa naħseb li l-enfasi kien kif ser iwaqfu lin-nies milli jidhlu.
Għalhekk infatti din hija problema b'ħafna dimensjonijiet kif qedlek. Kif inti għandek id-dimensjoni jew nies bħal pajjiż bħal tagħna. Kif jiena ngħid li s-sistemi tal-Unjoni Ewropea illum qed ifallu. Qed ifallu lil pajjiż bħal tagħna għax mhux qed nieħdu l-għajnuna li għandna nieħdu. Qed ifalli lill-immigranti li jibqgħu jissugraw ħajjithom u jitilfu ħajjithom fuq il-baħar. Jiġifieri għalija llum is-sistemi mhux qed jaħdmu tajjeb u hemmhekk iridu naħdmu. Però fi dik l-ewwel ħaġa, pajjiż bħal tagħna ma ngħidx li ġie mitluq għal kollox minn Ewropea biex nkunu feri fi aħna ħadna diversi miljuni, ħadna kważi 100 miljun ta' għajnuna biex aħna ikonna l-faċilitajiet u training għal nies biex ikunu jistgħu jħendiljaw dak tip ta' sitwazzjonijiet. U mbagħad għandek il-pajjiżi ta' transitu bħalma hija l-Libja. Ukoll hemmhekk il-palissa għaddej proġett tal-Unjoni Ewropea mal-Libja fejn qed jintefqu minn għalija xi 50 miljun biex jingħataw training lill-uffiċjali Libjani biex ikunu jistgħu jagħmlu patrols tal-borders tagħhom aħjar u biex ikunu jistgħu kapaċi jilqgħu lil dawn l-immigranti aħjar. Però mbagħad titmur at the source of the problem. The source of the problem hija l-pajjiż minn fejn qed jitilqu dawn in-nies. Fejn titmur issa dak il-problemi inti ħassolvihom l-llum u laqas għada, da ħassolvihom bil-mod billi tipprova tgħin dak il-pajjiż. Issa dawn huma pajjiżi li hemm faqar kbir. Misprobabbli hemm gwerer kbar. Jiġifieri jekk inti pereżempju bħalissa l-ikbar influss ta' nies li ġej mis-Sirja. U issa Sirja mhux ħatmur l-Unjoni Ewropea u ssolvija, hemm gwerra u dik il-gwerra b'xi mod jew titwaqqafha biex l-influss xi mod jew.
Stefano, il-ġimgħa d-dieħla biex nagħlaq dan is-suġġett, il-ġimgħa d-dieħla se jkun hemm diskussjoni wkoll fih dan il-fora l-Parlament Ewropew u l-istrutturi tal-Unjoni Ewropea dwar il-kwistjoni tal-immigrazzjoni irregolari. Għal dan il-summit, Minister Żbarjat li ġej, Joseph Muscat qed jistenna li se jkun hemm is-soluzzjonijiet f'dan is-summit. Min-naħa tagħha l-Oppożizzjoni Nazzjonalista għandha ħafna mistoqsijiet dwar kemm ħajkun hemm soluzzjonijiet. Ma jkunx aħjar imma li f'dan il-mument tant kruċjali għal pajjiżna jekk aħna din inħarsu lejn l-immigrazzjoni bħala problema illi l-Oppożizzjoni issa minkejja dak kollu li ntqal tpoġġi dak kollu li ntqal warajna u tpoġġi flimkien mal-Gvern Malti biex naraw li tal-inqas inġibu l-aħjar kondizzjonijiet għal pajjiżna minn dan is-summit li ġej milli donnu nistennew illi jmur għas-summit Joseph Muscat ma jġibx ir-riżultati li qed jgħid li se jġib imbagħad l-Oppożizzjoni tgħid I told you so.
Jiena naħseb fuq l-objettiv finali naħseb qbil fil-objettiv finali għandu jkun illi pajjiżna jkun jista' ikun f'pożizzjoni li jista' jħendilja l-influssi li jiġu. Fin naħseb m'hemm ebda differenza bejn il-Partit Laburista u l-Partit Nazzjonalista, li hemm differenza fuq l-approach. Min jaf l-affarijiet kif jaħdmu, u Joseph Muscat jaf l-affarijiet kif jaħdmu fl-Unjoni Ewropea, ma jmurx jgħid illi qabel ma nieħu dak li rrid ma noħroġ minn dik il-Kamra, għax l-affarijiet ma jaħdmux hekk fl-Unjoni Ewropea. Fl-Unjoni Ewropea inti tibni argumenti b'kredibilità u tibni argumenti b'alleanzi. Fin trid tagħmel alleanzi ma' pajjiżi oħra, issa aħna għandna il-presidenza li ġejja hija l-Greka u l-presidenza ta' wara hija dik Italjana. Għandna żewġ pajjiżi tal-Mediterran illi wkoll qed jiffaċċjaw din il-problema tal-immigrazzjoni irregolari u fi huma alleati naturali tagħna. Fi aħna minflok noqogħdu ngħidu ħammorru ġo Kamra u ma noħroġ minn qabel jirranġaw, ovvjament trid taħdem hand in hand ma' dawn il-pajjiżi. Unjoni Ewropea hekk taħdem, fl-Unjoni Ewropea mhux billi l-unika persuna li naf jien f'dal aħħar snin li qal ħajamel minn kollox ma joħroġ minn hemm u jagħmel vitos kien Berlusconi. Berlusconi għamel dak it-tip ta' approach u baqa' f'wiċċu għax daw xi ġara ġi injorat mill-bija tal-pajjiżi l-oħra. Fl-Unjoni Ewropea ma tistax taħdem, jekk jien ukoll nixtieq ngħid isma' qabel ma nieħu dak li rrid mhux ħanoħroġ minn hemm, imma inti taf li dik hemm sistema u hemm kultura ta' kif għandek taħdem u tittaħdem dik is-sistema. Jekk inti tmur kontra l-kurrent, kontra kulħadd, u ma taħdimx mhux qed ngħidlek ma tagħmilx il-pożizzjoni tiegħek biex inkun ċar. Fi Malta għandha l-każ tagħha xi tpoġġi, Malta għandha request tagħha li għandha tpoġġi u għandha legitimate expectations li għandhom jintlaħqu, ma tistax tmur hemm b'attitudni illi qabel ma dak li rrid jiena mhux ħanoħroġ minn hemm noqgħod nisabbat saqajja. Ma tasal imkien biha.
Fuq l-istess argumenti ma fuq suġġett differenti, fuq il-kwistjoni ta' ċittadinanza ukoll il-Parlament Ewropew se jkun qed jiddiskuti l-bejħ tal-iskema ta' ċittadinanza li qed jipproponi il-Gvern Malti. Skema illi tiġi għamlet ħsara kbira lil pajjiżna llum donnu hawn kunsens anka minn ma jridx jammettiha però illi din l-iskema ħamġet isem pajjiżna anka fil-media wieħed jaqra gazzetti kbar ta' fama internazzjonali fosthom pereżempju il-Financial Times induna li kemm għamlet ħsara din l-iskema. Però issa ħammorru biex niddiskutuha fil-Parlament Ewropew. Anke hemmhekk minkejja dak kollu li ġara u minkejja li l-Gvern f'dil ħaġa għamel kif jgħidu balbuljata sħiħa, però ma jkunx iktar għaqli issa li f'din is-sitwazzjoni naraw illi innatfu isem pajjiżna billi nippruvaw illi sakemm immorru quddiem il-Parlament Ewropew inkomplu naraw kif se nsibu soluzzjoni fuq din il-problema illi forsi ninsew ftit illi vera li minn din il-kwistjoni il-Partit Nazzjonalista jista' jakkwista iktar popolarità u jakkwista l-voti anke f'elezzjoni ta' Parlament Ewropew, però l-interess ta' pajjiżna ma jitlobx li f'dan il-mument issa naħdmu biex nerġgħu niksbu lura l-isem tajjeb li għandu pajjiżna.
Infatti il-punt tiegħek jekk tista' nieħu mument pass lura iġibni wkoll għall-punt. Kemm importanti illi f'issues nazzjonali bħalma jagħti l-immigrazzjoni biex imur pass lura fuqha, kemm importanti li inti tkun kapaċi taħdem ma' MPs ta' partit ieħor. Fina dik nemmen ħafna jina fil-Kumitat Fejqatien għana nqasmu minn ħaddem il-unions u s-soċjetà ċivili. U l-unions u minn ħaddem normalment huma ras imbras. Però jiena fix-xogħol tiegħi dejjem ħdimt anke ma tal-unions. Għalja volja jiena nirrepreżenta minn ħaddem. U hemm fil-Parlament Ewropew trid tipprova tagħmel l-istess. Issa mhux dejjem ħadd tkun irnexxielek għax inti jkollok l-ideali politiċi tiegħek, il-prinċipji tiegħek u mhux dejjem irnexxielek. Però fuq xi ħaġa bħall-immigrazzjoni irregolari jiena nemmen illi għandi jkollna plattform biex nista' naħdmu flimkien. Issa fuq ta' ċittadinanza. Jiddispeċini ngħid li din il-Gvern għamel żball kbir. Jiġifieri jiena nerġa' ngħidlek jiena sa 10 xhur ilu, sena ilu, sentejn ilu, in-nies f'Brussels, jiena nitla' Brussels kull ġimgħatej bażikament. In-nies Brussels kienu jiġu jgħiduli, isma' Malta kif jirnexxielkom iżommu ir-rata tal-qad daqshekk baxxa, kif jirnexxielkom tkabru l-ekonomija b'dak il-mod waqt li ħafna mill-Ewropa sejra lura. Dawk kienu l-mistoqsijiet li kont nisma'. Però l-aħħar ftit xhur u fl-aħħar ftit ġimgħat nisma' bejn offside ta' xofjan daw jafuni wkoll. Jridu nisma' tridu xi ftit Russi minn għandna jkun iċ-Ċipriot pereżempju. Jew inkella kien hemm min qalli isma' intom x'intom tagħmlu Malta, l-ewwel ġejtu bil-pushbacks. Issa qed bijaw il-passaporti, x'qed tagħmlu eżattament f'daqqa waħda. U jiddispeċik li tara illi aħna ġanna problema naturali ngħidilha jien illi qegħdin fil-naħar tal-isfel tal-Ewropa, fil-Mediterran, u ħafna drabi jaqbdu jitfawna f'keffa waħda, mela Malta, Ċipru, Portugal, Greċja, isna kulħadd f'daqqa. Però aħna dejjem ħdimna b'mod għaqli illi noru li aħna kapaċi nkunu differenti mill-bqija tal-pajjiżi l-oħra tal-Mediterran. Però sfortunatament bdiet biċċa balbuljata kif qed tilha inti, issa qed jitfawna fil-keffa jiena ġiet persuna Franċiża l-ġimgħa l-oħra qalt li Malta money laundering. Qed money laundering xi ġifieri. Ma dan huwa t-tip ta' ħsara li tagħmellek. Jiena naf kumpanija Ġemgħa fis-servizzi finanzjarji għandha head office fil-Ġermanja, għandu uffiċini hawnhekk, qed ikollhom mistoqsijiet mill-head office, isma' fi dar uffiċċji li ġa miftuħin hawn, mhux għadhom qed jaħsbu xi qed jgħidulhom intom x'qed tagħmlu hemmhekk, x'qed jiġri hemm Malta, għax qed ninkwetaw. U jiena jidhirli l-gvern ħarbitlu totalment ħarab mill-kontroll tiegħu. Fi da ħaseb illi forsi ħajżomm id-dibattitu lokali, u rajt jista' jkontrolla kollox, però fil-verità ħarbitlu minn taħt idejh. U meta rajt li ġejna spiċċajna fil-front page tal-Financial Times jiena tilħaqna l-qofol tal-ħsara. Fi da meta pajjiż jispiċċa fil-front page tal-Financial Times għall affarijiet tajbin, isu dak il-pajjiż rebaħ l-lotterija għalfejn. Għax l-investituri minnu fil-business, waħda mill-affarijiet li gazzeti ħajara kull-jum żgur huwa l-Financial Times. Jekk inti tkun fil-Financial Times front page għal affarijiet pożittivi, dak jagħmilek ħafna ġid. Però issa l-fatt li spiċċajna fil-Financial Times front page għal affarijiet negattivi, ovvjament qed jagħmilna ħafna ħsara. Però ma ħaqniex il-qofol hemm, issa naħseb l-qofol ħaqnieh li spiċċajna fiċ-ċentru ta' dibattitu tal-Parlament Ewropew. Mela l-Parlament Ewropew ħajiddiskuti il-beħ ta' ċittadinanza, dak huwa t-titlu tad-dibattitu, il-beħ ta' ċittadinanza Ewropea. Ovvjament ħad issemma Malta. U meta jissemma pajjiż f'dibattitu fl-Unjoni Ewropea, normalment jissemma xi hemm ċertu problemi f'dak il-pajjiż. Pereżempju, l-aħħar ġimgħat kien hemm id-diskussjoni fuq l-Ukrajna. So issa Malta ħad ispiċċa f'ċentru ta' dibattitu għall affarijiet żiena kollha. U issa forsi kien hemm il-ħaseb hija forsi nirranġaw għal-liġi qabel ma jkun da dibattitu, però ġa ħarġu esponenti fil-Parlament Ewropew qalu isma' jiġri fuq il-liġi ta' Malta, xorta ħadd iġi diskussa din.
Stefano, suġġetti ieħor jaħraq kull darba li tissemmi l-elezzjoni tal-Parlament Ewropew hija l-kwistjoni tal-kaċċa f'pajjiżna. Issa donhom inġabru l fuq minn 30,000 firma irid jiġu iċċekkjati, però jidher li jekk dawk il-ferem huma kollha awtentiċi allura jista' jkun li mmexxin għal referendum dwar il-kaċċa f'pajjiżna, dwar il-kaċċa fir-rebbija.
Kaċċa fir-rebbija
X'se tkun il-pożizzjoni tal-Partit Nazzjonalista lilek min jaf kemm se jsaqsewlek din mistoqsija.
Ġa jsaqsewlek.
Inti pereżempju personalment x'in il-pożizzjoni tiegħek dwar il-kaċċa fir-rebbija u se tkun il-pożizzjoni tal-partit?
L-nies naħseb illi il-fat li għandu jisir referendum, dak għandu jkun ebda kwistjoni. Il-referendum għandu dritt li jisir u għandu jisir, fi dik l-ewwel ħaġa. U naħseb hija ħaġa pożittiva, xina jekk hawn xi ħaġa li nemmen fiha hija l-parteċipazzjoni tan-nies f'affarijiet importanti għall pajjiż. Infatti jiena waħda mill-affarijiet li ddejjaqni xi kultant hija illi isu d-dibattitu u d-diskussjoni hija magħluqa biss għan-nies li qegħdin fil-politika. Mentre hemm ħafna nies hemm barra li vera jixtiequ jagħtu l-opinjoni tagħhom fuq diversi issues. U naħseb waħda minnhom hija proprju l-kaċċa fir-rebbija. Il-pożizzjoni tiegħi hija ċara, il-pożizzjoni tiegħi hija illi l-kaċċa fir-rebbija skont ir-regoli għandha tkompli. Jekk il-kaċċa fir-rebbija jimxu mar-regoli kif huma llum, strettament kif huma llum, jiena m'għandix problema biha. Però għandi pożizzjoni oħra wkoll illi jekk nerġgħu ikonna dak it-tip ta' massakru bħalma kellna meta għaddew l-aħħar darba lajk li fuq pajjiżna u nqatlu dawn huma tjur illi f'pajjiżi oħra qed jintefqu mijiet ta' eluf ta' euro biex jikkonservawhom. Ma mhuwiex aċċettabbli illi jiġu dawk it-tip ta' safar minn fuq pajjiżna u aħna noqtlu.
Però huma l-ftit li qegħdin jaħlu li magħhom qed jaħlu ħafna.
Appuntu, dak huwa dik hija l-punt tiegħi. Però jiena l-pożizzjoni tiegħi li jekk jerġa' jiġri hekk, il-Gvern Malti għandu jaqbad u jagħlaq l-istaġun. Fina m'għandix.
Daqshekk drastiku.
Iva, għax issa naħseb ġrat darba.
Mikelli huma l-ftit li qegħdin jagħmlu dan.
Ma issa ġrat darba, ġrat darbtej, ġrat darbit ma jistax ikun iqpaw sejnek, jiena ngħid jekk jerġa' jkun dak it-tip ta' massakru, il-Gvern għandu jgħid mela l-istaġun għal dis-sena huwa magħluq.
Stefano, inti tkun qed tagħmel il-żjarat fi djar bħalissa u tiltaqa' man-nies u jkollok min jaf kemm l-attività flimkien mal-kandidati l-oħra kollha tal-Partit Nazzjonalista tkun qed tikkampanja u nies jiġu jkellmu fuq diversi issues. X'qed jgħidulek dwar il-Partit Nazzjonalista n-nies illum? Għadek issib ġrieħi li għadhom miftuħin li għadhom qegħdin ixxu għadek issib nies jgħidulek il-Partit Nazzjonalista minkejja l-bidliet kollha li għamel wara l-elezzjoni ġenerali ma' xorta waħda mhux qed jilħaq l-aspettattiva tagħhom.
L-ewwel ħaġa naħseb l-iktar ħaġa pożittiva tal-esperjenza tiegħi s'issa kemm issa dħalt mod dirett kif għedna fil-bidu hija li nintaqa' man-nies. Jiena dejjem kont nieħu gost nintaqa' man-nies, ix-xogħol tiegħi dejjem kien li nintaqa' man-nies u l-mawwa tiegħi dejjem kienet tgħidli inti jekk ma tintaqax man-nies tmut. U dik hija l-iktar ħaġa pożittiva u l-iktar ħaġa li qed tittini kuraġġ u entużjażmu biex nagħmel dan li qed nagħmel bħalissa fi dik l-ewwel ħaġa. Ovvjament kif qed tgħid inti wkoll għax iż-żmien ippermetta u naħseb waħda mill-deċiżjonijiet tajbin li għamel il-partit kienet illi ħabbar għalmenu l-ewwel batch ta' kandidati kmieni. Għax li tatna biżżejjed ħin biex inkunu nista' nagħmlu affarijiet kif supposti. Jiena llum kelli ċans u għandi ċans qed imur għand il-familji direttament. Mhux apparti intaqa' mal-gruppi qed imur ukoll ġodjar tan-nies. U naħseb dik hija l-isbaħ esperjenza x'il-fatt li xi ħadd ikun lest jilqa' ġodaru hija xi ħaġa pożittiva ħafna u napprezza ħafna. Issa x'qed jgħidu fuq il-partit. Kif qed inti Frank, u ma ħsibx qed ngħid xi ħaġa xi biċċa news kbira, għad hemm ħafna ġrieħi. Jiġifieri jekk hemm ħaġa konsistenti li smajt minn ħafna nies li huma mitla tal-partit, li jħobbu l-partit biex inkunu ċari, hija illi għadhom huma mweġġejn. Huma mweġġejn minħabba jiena dejjem ngħid kulħadd għandu raġun. Jiena ebda mod ma ħammur hemm barra ngħid isma' dak għandu tort u dak għandu
Xi jsemmulek imma xi jsemmulek wara.
Hemm min jgħidlek isma'. Jien naħseb l-iktar ħaġa naħseb ċara li ħarġet hija illi il-partit kien tilef il-kuntatt dirett man-nies. Dik hija waħda mill-affarijiet konsistenti li neqpa' nisma' minn in-nies. Issa jista' jkun għax konna meħudin wisq milli nigvernaw. Jista' jkun fejn ma waħħal f'ħadd biex inkunu ċari. Però konsistentament jgħidulek illi ma kenniex kuntatt il-partit man-nies. Dik hija ħaġa. Però naħseb it-tieni ħaġa li wkoll qed nisma' hija hemm entużjażmu wkoll biex jerġgħu jaraw il-partit fuq saħ. Issa kellna għamilna leadership ġdid, għandna l-Simon Busuttil, il-Mario De Marco, Beppe Fenekadami u Chris Sajt li huma l-leadership ġdid tagħna. Hemm enerġija ġdida li niġijaw fid-dar ċentrali kważi kull ġimgħatej u ta' dak il-mijiet ta' nies illi qegħdin dejjem qed jiġu jissapportjaw il-partit għalija hija ta' inkoraġġ kbir. U jien ngħidilhom in-nies il-partit huwa intom. Il-fatt li n-nies bħalkom jiġu u l-fatt li issa ftaħna l-bibien tad-dar ċentrali u n-nies qed jiġu huwa pożittiv ħafna. Però għadna għad fadal ħafna xogħol. Biex nkunu ċari biex ma nħarbux niġru fil-bidu inti qed jekk hux ħantellaw tlieta jew le u x'jista' jkun l-implikazzjoni tal-partit. Biex intellaw tlieta fadal ħafna xogħol xisir. Għad fadal ħafna xogħol xisir illi però kull ma huwa illi tintaqa' dirett man-nies. Jiena dejjem nemmen li n-nies l-nies jriduk tismagħhom fid-dik żgur. Huma jridu jisimgħu wkoll inti x'taħseb u wkoll jrid ikollhom interaction miegħek. Kif inutli it-television kif qegħdin jaraw inti llum huwa tajjeb, imma it-television jindaħ bħala introduction. Issa meta ħammur anċati u li rajti fuq it-television u tkun tista' tiftaħ iżjed. Però xtaqt ngħid huwa waħda mill-affarijiet li jiena nara, issa mhux qed ngħid jiena, però waħda mill-affarijiet li nara hija li l-partit għadu qed jibnihom, però għadu jrid jkompli jibni struttura illi kapaċi tilqa' lil min irid jgħin il-partit. Jiena ntqajt ma' ħafna nies illi qed jgħidu li isma' jien kif nista' ngħinu l-partit, il-min nista' nkellem, bliema mod nista' nkun involut. Hemm irid ikun involut fil-kumitati, hemm irid ikun involut fil-volontiera, hemm irid jinvolvi biss b'idejat. U għad irid naħseb iridu nibnu l-istruttura adekwata biex nilqgħu dak tip ta' nies.
Jien niltaqgħu wkoll ma' nies illi jagħmlu kritika fil-konfront tal-Partit Nazzjonalista u nixtieq ir-risposta tiegħek għal din tip ta' kritika. Illi donnu minkejja l-bidliet li saru għadhom komplu jisiru fih dan il-partit, però m'hemmx biżżejjed diskussjoni fuq diversi issues ta' importanza strateġika u importanti għal pajjiżna, pereżempju jinnaf, pereżempju il-Partit Nazzjonalista għandu strutturi fih danu illi llum qegħdin jiddiskutu fejn sejra u kif se tkun l-ekonomija ta' pajjiżna fil-15 snin li ġejjin, x'sistema edukattiva rridu għal pajjiżna, is-sistema tas-saħħa f'pajjiżna kemm hija sostenibbli li tibqa' kif hija llum. Hemm dat tip ta' diskussjoni fih dan il-Partit Nazzjonalista hawn min jgħid illi m'hemmx, inti x'tirrispondi?
Jiena naħseb illi l-ewwel ħaġa, Frank, hija illi jridu nkunu ċerti illi l-ewwel nirranġaw dak li huwa kruċjali ġol partit. L-ewwel nirranġaw ġewwa. U naħseb waħda mill-issues prinċipali li qed nipprova nirranġaw hija dik finanzjarja. U sakemm nirranġaw dik finanzjarja ma tantx tista' tagħmel ħafna affarijiet oħra, mingħajr ma tirranġa dik ma tistax tagħmel affarijiet oħra. Però naħseb ukoll illi kif qed tgħid sewwenti irridu nibnu strutturi oħra kif kont qed ngħid ukoll minuta ilu illi nkunu nistgħu ninvolvu aktar nies fid-diskussjoni. Qed issir biżejjed diskussjoni, jien ngħid għadna le. Jien ngħid li għalissa il-preokkupazzjoni prinċipali tagħna hija nirranġaw internament l-istrutturi u l-finanzi tal-partit. Meta nirranġaw dawk, imbagħad ikunu sa noħorġu hemm barra b'konfidenza u nabnu l-istruttura li hemm bżonn biex inkunu nistgħu noħorġu aktar u nintaqgħu aktar man-nies. Però naħseb diskussjoni ma nistax ngħidu mhux qed issir, għax naħseb illum bil-mezzi kemm tar-radju, kemm tat-television propju hawn, ukoll id-dialogi li jsiru nhar ta' ħadd, illi u anke illi naf diversi mhux membri tal-Parlament u kol kandidati li huma li kienu ħarġu għall-elezzjoni ġenerali qed imorru jagħmlu l-house visits. U dawk naħseb huma kruċjali. L-iktar ħaġa importanti kif nerġa' ngħid hija l-kuntatt man-nies. Jiġifieri ovvjament illi it-top brass ngħidhom jieni fil-kapijiet tal-partit ikunu qed joħorġu hemm barra ta' nies huwa importanti, però mhux biss huma. Il-partit huwa magħmul ukoll mill-membri tal-Parlament tagħna, mill-kandidati li ħarġu għall-elezzjoni ġenerali, mill-kandidati li ħerġin bħala MEPs. Daw kollha jridu jkunu hemm barra jintaqgħu man-nies u naħseb dik hija l-aħjar ħaġa li nistgħu nagħmlu.
Xi spiritu hemm bejnkom il-kandidati tal-Partit Nazzjonalista għal din l-elezzjoni? Hemm karattri differenti ħafna min huwa bħalek li huwa ġej bil-qasam tal-Unjoni Ewropea u għandu l-expertise fil-qasam tal-Unjoni Ewropea, oħrajn li huma ġejjin iktar mid-dinja tax-xogħol oħrajn. Insomma, hemm taħlita sħiħa hemm iż-żewġ membri parlamentari attwali, David Casa u Roberta Mezzola. Kif tmorru flimkien? X'inhu huwa l-ispirtu?
Naħseb illi il-chemistry bħala l-interaction bħala team huwa tajjeb ħafna. Il-fatt li issa għandna diġà diversi xhur imħabbrin bħala kandidati għall-Parlament ukoll tajba għax tatna ċans insiru nafu xulxin. Jiena kien hemm min nista' ngħid forsi kont naf tliet kwarti minnhom in-nies li ġew magħżula, però kemm min ma kontx nafu wkoll u llum sirt nafu u jien napprezza kull persuna li hemm. U ħafna drabi ikun hemm jiena nsaqsi pari lil ħaddieħor u kien hemm min isaqsi pari lili wkoll.
Minkejja fl-aħħar mill-aħħar qed ikkompetu bejniethom.
Biex ikunu ċari, ovvjament il-kompetizzjoni hija bejn il-kandidati, però l-ispirtu huwa tajjeb, jiena nmejt għalija huwa hija esperjenza pożittiva wkoll il-partit biex ukoll norbtu ftit mela kif ngħidu qed jorganizzanna sessjonijiet ngħidu ta' training fejn ukoll niddiskutu l-policy, niddiskutu kif għandek tippreżenta ruħek dak tip ta' affarijiet u dak jittik l-opportunità biex tagħmel interaction ukoll ma' kandidati oħra, ġifieri llum s'issa nqisha bħala esperjenza pożittiva ħafna.
Stefano, ġejna fit-tmiem tal-programm, grazzi ħafna tal-ħintijek, jiena nawguralek bħalma naturalment nawgurali l-kandidati kollha li jkunu qegħdin joħorġu għall-elezzjoni bħal din fl-aħħar mill-aħħar kull min joħroġ għall-elezzjonijiet hemm biex jagħti kontribut għal pajjiżu.
Jiena li jekk nista' ngħid ħaġa li jiġi x'jiġri din s'issa hija esperjenza pożittiva u rrida tkun esperjenza pożittiva sal-aħħar. U ningrazzja lilek ovvjament tal-istudentni u nawgura l-festi tajba li semmija kollha ta' net television.
Naqgħod miegħek. Bek ġejna fit-tmiem tal-programm Iswed fuq l-Abjad tal-lum. Nirringrazzja ħafna lill-sponsors ta' dan il-programm, jiġifieri l-PIM Publications kif ukoll il-Vigo u l-Red October. Jiena l-appuntamenti għajr magħkom nagħmlu għal ġimgħa d-dieħla fl-istess ħin infakkarkom li dan il-programm apparti li jixxandar is-sibt fit-8:30 ta' filgħaxija ikun imtenni wkoll għada l-ħadd fl-4:30 ta' wara nofsinhar. Imbagħad naturalment matul il-ġimgħa tkunu tistgħu issegwu wkoll jekk ma tkunux ilħaqtu dan il-programm permezz tal-Facebook page tiegħu Iswed fuq l-Abjad. Grazzi ħafna u lejli tajjeb lilkom.
Going downtown, going downtown, going downtown, get down. Tonight I'm going downtown, going downtown, going downtown, get down, yeah. Tonight I'm going downtown, I'm going downtown, I'm going downtown.